with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. Roll call, please, lady, please. Well, yeah, go give it a try.
You showed up.
We would have pressed off.
Edward Keller.
Here.
William Simon here. Christine Holcomb.
Here.
Harold Bain.
Here.
Mark Borchardt.
Here.
Tom Kozel.
Here.
Robert Busey.
Here.
And Keith Phelps.
Here.
Kathy Schleifer.
Kathy Schleifer's here.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Item number 4, amendments to agenda. Amendments, hearing none. How about item number 5, approval of minutes?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? We're gonna have to slow down while he's a little. No. Okay,
Yeah, they looked okay.
you all set?
Yes.
Okay. So approval of minutes, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. Item number 6 is new business, which is item 6A, the public hearing for the 7317 Bank Road, which is going to be continued on December 11th, 2019. So I think that's all we have to say for that one.
Yes.
Thank you, Matt. Item number 7, unfinished business, we have A, B, and C. First one is A, shipping containers.
So these have, as we may have realized, we've lost momentum on them a little bit. With other projects, the master plan and the other public hearing that's been going on pretty much the entire year. We don't have any updates for you right now on these items. We thought it was better to focus on the master plan, so we're going to jump into these next year. I took a look at the boathouse notes. We didn't have a whole lot that we just said we kind of revisited our next meeting, and there wasn't a whole lot of direction. So we're going to pump the brakes on the ordinance amendments for the moment and sort of revisit on all 3 of them. And we're going to go back and provide you with meeting materials probably sometime next year. We're thinking January or February when the agendas are a little lighter, and really allow you to just focus on those and keep those in your view. So we don't have any updates for you on those tonight. We did look, I guess the one thing I will mention, I did look at my notes for the boathouses. I know that's the kind of the hotter issue. In my notes, I had that there was no real issues with the actual ordinance itself as far as residential boathouses. It was had more to do with how they were being permitted and some of the things that were being missed in the reviews for them. They were allowed a little taller with closed sides. So at this point, we didn't see any glaring issues in the ordinance that need to be addressed today. So we'd like to just take a step back and not try to rush those through. So we don't have anything for you today on that. We would like to go over our planner's report, though, which is, and then talk,
Item number 8.
which would be item number 8. And so we're already that far down the agenda.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Can I ask a question about how?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
When you bring that back, whenever you bring it back,
Yep.
can we have some visuals? Graphs, please?
Yes.
Did we ever get anything for the DEQ on the boathouses, what they are?
That's the other thing we wanted to really put it in a clean format to say, here's what the DEQ requires, here's what your ordinance requires, here's maybe where they vary and where you can tighten it up a little bit and require. But as far as your ordinance goes, I was looking back, there was, it is capped at 14 feet for residential boathouses. They do have to have open sides. So all those standards are in there.
Then how come some of these boathouses got built? I mean, some of them are bigger than the houses.
And that's kind of what I mentioned earlier, that, and maybe it's just kind of with everybody within the township, you get a new building official, maybe just making sure everyone's clear on the same page. But as far as those are not permitted under your ordinance, so I don't.
So what do we do? Get the violation on them? I mean,
Well, if they were given a permit, then
Yeah, we do that.
Well, existing boathouses.
yeah. So that was just kind of our.
Yeah.
But we tore them down right there on the channel.
But these boathouses were just recently built within the last 5 years, 6 years, some of them.
Some within the last year.
Yeah, some of them within the last year, and they're bigger than,
And
two-story, they got living
So,
quarters
and that's
above them.
something that we can also work with the building department to maybe pull the last 2 years of permits. It's,
do that?
I think, yeah, that's something we can ask them and see what kind of, if they have that information, and we can sort of, that's what I was saying, we want to do this when things are a little less, we were trying to we're getting your master plan, we're about halfway done with the actual document itself, which I'm going to get into next.
We shouldn't have a problem identifying each one of those that was built.
Exactly, yeah, so that, it's just, we wanted to keep, that to
But
be
with
the
that
focus.
being said, then I can see other members of the public saying, well, you let them do it a year ago, why can't I do it now? So, I mean, not only is it maybe our ordinance is what it is, but now that we're we might even have to look at, okay, now what do we do with
Yeah,
this?
so that's.
So, but just,
It's a
there's some
big-
direction, how's
Yes,
that?
that's our direction, so we're gonna bring that, forward to you. Like I said, probably next year. We have a timeline laid out to finish up, to get your master plan draft in front of you, so I can give you a brief update on that. And then we did want to walk you through everything we went over at the open house and sort of where we're at as far as information gathering, some of the things we're starting to see. And then, so the plan is for your next December meeting, as you are aware of your agenda today, you will be continuing the public hearing for the Blue Horseshoe Development Project. At that meeting, or with that meeting's materials, our plan is to give you, I believe it's the first first three chapters of your plan, which would have your existing conditions, the regional settings, some of the public input that's been gathered, and then we would provide you, so we'd give you that to just read. There'd be no discussion on it. It would be presenting, if, depending on how long the meeting goes, we could discuss it. But you would have that in your hands in December, and you'd have a month to really read over it, and we would then discuss with you goals and objectives in January. Is how so you'd have a month to look over the draft of the first half of the plan. You'd have probably 2 or 3 weeks, early January, you'd get the draft of the goals and objectives to talk about at the regular January meeting. And then we would take that information back and then present you a draft plan in March, which would be that would be the first time you'd see the whole thing together. Depending on how close it is, that would look at probably an April or May adoption. And that would, April or May would be when you would send it out to the surrounding communities, and it would be about a June or July adoption. So sometime in the summer. But you'll be getting the first draft at December's meeting, and just to read for the next month. So, and really absorb and make some comments and think about it. So we want to give you enough time to not say, here's 4 days to read over it, or here it is at the meeting. So that's where our plan is right now.
Regarding the public hearing, did you guys look at the questions that we got?
We did. We reviewed, I believe we had 49 questions
Yes.
that were sent to us. We condensed them down to 42 because there were some duplicates. Sent them to the applicants, and we are meeting with them on Monday afternoon next week. And then they will have to submit by the end of the day, Wednesday, in order to be on the December agenda. So they have their questions. They said that they're going to answer all of them, and all the plans will be all ready to go by Wednesday. So that's where we're at with them. Yes. So with that, do you want to? Why don't you do that? I'll let Matt talk.
That too.
So we had the first of 2 open houses that we'll have for the master plan. The second one hopefully will be when it's warmer. We had the part 1 at Harson's Island at 3. Turnout was pretty good. We had about 15 to 20 people there. And then we had the second part here. And then we're going to make all the posters that we made available to Cindy to post on the website to share, just to get that information out there. So the posters we presented are very basic beginnings of what the document will become. So the document will obviously address natural features. We're updating maps with water sheds and wetlands. These likely will be improved. These maps are still somewhat vague and may be incorporated into one map that shows land cover, which is maybe more representative of just separating out wetlands and woodlands and these issues, maybe just combining that into one natural features type land cover map to make it more clear. And then here's the woodlands, so that's still separate. And then the parks map, there's some private parks areas indicated on there that will be updated. So on some of the posters, we had some question prompts, and then we had sheets available in front of the posters for written comment, which we collected, and we'll report back the public input back to you from the joint meeting and then also from the open house in a formal way at a future meeting.
I do have the forms that we handed out. I'd like to pass them out to you, those are the questions on them. And if you want to fill them out, please do. I know there's a typo on this one.
So these are,
It's the first word on this. So, yes, did you all get it?
there's all stacked.
Spelled wrong.
Oh, they were probably left here because of the.
Would you like those?
Those are, this was the natural features questions. So, you are all citizens of the township.
Oh, this is the housing.
So
This
there
is the
was,
house.
so you'll notice at the bottom of some of the boards, there's a little red view where we were prompting them to, or asking them questions. So this is the questions that
Do you
were on
want
the
these
natural
ones passed out
features.
too?
They will be, yes, I was gonna do it as we got to them.
Take one and pass it
We all have the housing profile. So those were the questions we were asking.
out. Oh, we're
I think
good.
we did a little-
Christine's on it. She's really.
So we have the online survey that's going on. There's about 260 responses to that currently. So these are separate from the survey. So some of these comments might be more targeted suggestions that we look at. Some people came with some really good ideas to the open houses, which we can talk about as we get to those in the slides. Things that maybe local residents are more aware of than we are, the things that we should look at. So with the master plan update, we're going to update the demographics. We've talked about that at a previous meeting. Clay Township's aging. They've lost some of their population. So we'll look at how that surrounding communities, how that compares with Clay Township. And then that's usually the beginning part of the plan. So then your action items kind of feed off where your demographics are trending. And then also household composition, which reflects the demographics, particularly age. So this is just a generic slide of a community for all ages. It talks about ways you can support that. This is kind of a national policy thing. And one of the things that's in here under 2 is accessory dwelling units, which fortunately you already permit in various ways. So that is one way you're ahead of the curve through permitting those either for businesses or for homeowners to have that opportunity to apply to build an accessory dwelling unit for maybe an aging parent or someone like that. So we'll also look at housing profile. And the information won't be presented in this manner. This was just to make it work with the poster. It'll be more of a formal report.
Could you show the new housing starts? 'Cause you were talking about that on Harson's Island.
Informally with the supervisor.
Right, we would like to see if you guys could ever maybe incorporate the new housing starts in Clay County. Yes.
It won't add much to the population because too many live alone, and so you get a few more.
Yeah, but it was just an interesting
Yeah,
pick,
it
how
was.
many starts, how many new housing starts there were in Clay County as a total.
Sure, yeah, hopefully, as long as the building department can pull that easy enough, we can do that by year, sure. And so we have median housing value, median year built, percent of owner-occupied homes, and then auto-related statistics for households. The autos per household might seem off, but that's actually around, usually most households are around 2 nationally, or maybe just under 2, which might not line up with what you think as households having 3 or 4 cars, but generally that's about where communities are at.
Would it benefit us to show us the vacation residents versus the existing residents here, you know, full-timers? Would that help us in any way?
As
Because I know
long-
that we have a lot of vacation residents on the island and some of them on the mainland.
As long as it's, I think full-time occupancy is tracked by the American Community Survey, we'd have to check. if that's something that, if that lines up with that, but we'll look into that. And so this is related to one of the questions that's key to the entire master plan is the status of Clay Township as both a resident community and a recreational community, the issues that revolve around that, potential conflicts. So that's something we're going to focus on, is what the public input is as far as the rental or the vacation rental type activities that occur. And this is just some more national information. This is your pie chart of housing unit types, and you're very high on single-family detached dwellings, particularly higher than what you might see in other suburban communities in the Metro Detroit area. It's not a right or a wrong number thing. It's just representative of how you've developed over time. So that's something that's unique to you. And this is the missing middle housing. This is a trending planning issue for the past 10 years or so is that since World War II, developers haven't been building this middle range of housing. We've been building either single-family homes or mid-size or higher-rise apartment buildings. We haven't been building these triplexes or fourplexes that were more common before the war. So the goal of this is to try to encourage primarily smaller-scale developers to look at these small, moderate-sized unit types because there is a need in communities.
So that means we'd have to probably rezone more property for both.
So generally in zoning codes, there's a gap, there's a jump from duplex to apartments, which doesn't really address this range. You can have moderate densities, clustered cottages, things like that.
If you go to a fourplex, that becomes duplex and fourplex property. They're totally different.
Right, but I'm saying is you could make language that isn't just an apartment building or a duplex. You can make language that is maybe 5 or 8 units, depending on investigation and things like that you're comfortable with. But the zoning could be smarter from that standpoint throughout the country, that it shouldn't be just you can have a single family house, a duplex, or you're in an apartment. There's other unit types that should be allowed in certain areas. So this is just a generic slide on transportation mobility. You have a lot going on here. You have the Blue Water area transit. In the previous plan, there was some strategies that encouraged enhancing that, making that more frequent, making the Council on Aging service, that's a call-in service, making that more accessible to people. So these might be strategies that we keep or expand upon just to keep that momentum going. Obviously, the ferries, you have 3 ferries. And then one of the strategies in the previous plan was to install dynamic messaging boards along M29 to relay operation status of the Harson's Island ferry during peak travel periods and inclement weather. So that could be something that we keep or address in a different way. Here's a picture of transit on Russell Island. So that's another unique feature of your community. Algonac just adopted their master plan update earlier this year, and this is a slide that they have, or a page they have in their plan on autonomous vehicles. It could be something you include in your plan. It's still 10 to 30 years off. We think that they'll be fully autonomous vehicles, so there may not be a lot you need to do from a land planning standpoint with that, but just something to continue to be aware of. Also recreational bicycling. This is in the Blue Water Trail Towns Master Plan. This is not the Harson's Island Ferry, but this is the downtown, the Algonac Waterfront Park Ferry. They have a concept here for a bike lane that keeps bicyclists traveling on the ferry to the side, kind of in a designated area. So that could be something to look at for the Harson's Island Ferry. This is a picture from the slow ride. It's kind of hard to see, but kind of that same, what that image is showing, where the bicyclists are off to the side there waiting to load the ferry. So, and we asked a question with transportation and mobility, and that's addressed at length in the survey as far as transportation routes or things you'd like to see. So this is a new plan that was finished a month or 2 ago, the county's trails plan, led by the MPC, County Parks, Community Foundation, and then their consultant Smith Group. So this is an interesting plan. It covers from the New Baltimore County Line Trail to Port Huron, and it's a 54-mile trail, and it's in fragments now. There's pieces that are built, and it's not a consistent, it's not, as you would think, one trail shot. It's pieces, and they're different types of surfaces and things like that as you go, but the ultimate goal is to make that a complete connection. So they have some strategies for Algonac to connect from the trail that comes from the back of the state park into downtown Algonac to Dairy Queen and then through Algonac. So that's important to know as far as your community. But more importantly, they're calling Clay Township the Lake St. Clair Bikeway, which also includes Ira Township, Lake St. Clair coastline. And this is what is their preliminary recommendation for through the St. John's Marsh area, basically from where the sidewalk ends east of Pearl Beach or around Pearl Beach, from that point west to Ira. There'll be a follow-up plan to this that looks more closely at what is actually feasible, but basically what they're saying is to widen the shoulder by 6 feet. They're not saying which side of the road, and then from that widened shoulder is a two-way buffered bike lane, which a buffered bike lane is just a hatched pavement area. There's not a physical barrier there. And one thing they also mentioned is the shoulder is very narrow along St. John's Marsh. So if it is on that side, it may need a boardwalk or something else. So it's still a preliminary concept, but that's how they're addressing completing this gap. And this is not a priority one connection, but this is what they're calling a transformative connection. So it's kind of a second tier priority item. So this is the kind of thing we're going to try to pull in everything that's going on in the area and the community into your plan, just to make people aware of. There's a lot of plans at the county level. There's lots of activities that the supervisor and the boards are involved in to try to make that a
In the
full
concept
document.
stage, do they actually start to look at possible, probable costs, minimum, maximum?
This
Or is that totally ignored?
from New Baltimore through Ira to Pearl Beach is $13.5 million estimate based on the miles length.
Quite reasonable then.
And they do that for each segment, the entire route. They do provide an initial cost estimate. And that's obviously going to involve NDOT coordination and road work coordination. So it's a significant project. But these are the kinds of things we want to know so that things don't get lost. Oh, sorry.
Wasn't the original concept way back to connect it to all the way to, used to be Metro Beach, now it's Lake St. Clair Metro Park, and then all the way out to like Stony Creek in Washington Township?
There's a couple area trails. There's a lake-to-lake trail that I believe crosses the entire state. That's this trail up here. So this plan does include other trails besides this. This is just what's relevant to Clay Township.
I didn't know if that was gonna be part, to eventually make that come to fruition.
Yeah, they want to make all the connections they can. Usually, there's the County Line Trail, New Baltimore, that is, I believe, built for the most part on the east side of County Line Road. So it would connect to that and could make some nice connections. So
That does beg a question though. How many people use some of those bike trails? Are they well used?
I know the county line one connects up to the high school there on County Line, and quite a few people that actually, this time of year, not as many, but that gets a pretty good, and especially when you start to get them connected into a larger network, you really start like that Macomb Orchard Trail,
Yeah,
which
that's
that will
huge.
eventually lead to, is busy all the time. So the more connection they get, the busier they get.
Well, we don't need any more on Harson's Island because they impede traffic.
And so also we have the two focus areas, Sans Souci, we asked some target questions with this area, and we got some good feedback on what's going on, particularly at the edges of the business district. Some things the township could look at pursuing as far as issues with private land ownership, issues with parking, consolidating septic, those kinds of things that will come out of this topic.
So are they still looking at Pearl Beach too?
So this is Pearl Beach. So we found some interesting information as far as historical transit. This was a station on the interurban line from Detroit to Port Huron. This is information that's in your current master plan. And it's interesting that the path from the DNR parking lot, that walking path was the bed of the rail line, and that cut through on an angle up to Fairhaven to where the Dyke Road bypass is through that area. There's some markers there that you can kind of see where it came out, but if you look on aerials, you can kind of see that bed of the rail line is still visible. And then M29 was later built from a developer that kind of came around there, but prior to M29, that was how you got to Pearl Beach. I don't know if you can see it, but we have some maps that will be included that kind of show some nice. This was kind of like the more leisurely route through Pearl Beach, M29, and then there was a shortcut route along Shortcut Road that went from Fairhaven straight across to Marine City. So there were a couple different options for transit. And then we have this 1924 Sanborn fire insurance map. So this shows all the buildings. This is the Legas now that were in Pearl Beach at that time. So this is just another interesting resource to kind of see what the physical form of the area was. So our goal is one of the primary goals of this is to actually define, this is Pearl Beach, this is the boundary of Pearl Beach. And so we're looking at from the shoreline to the west and the shoreline to the east on the south side, and then one block or one lot deep on the north side is what our.
Does this show commercial property versus the residential property over there?
On the Sanborn,
Yeah.
it shows
Was there more commercial property back then over there?
there was 2 grocery stores, a post office. There were a couple clustered. It wasn't a major area ever.
Right.
Yeah, it was the station. It was a rural transit station. It shows fire rating and construction methods. I'd have to look to see, but we have some pictures too from those community books that they have. There's some good pictures that we can use in the plan.
There used to be a trolley that ran along M29.
Yeah, on the south side, that's why the utility
Yeah.
poles are pushed back, is
Yeah.
that's where the trolley was. So maybe that could be an opportunity for something, it could be an asset. So that history will be included, and that'll help inform. One of the people that came to the open house suggested a traffic light or some kind of improvements there at Pearl Beach. So that's something that came out of the open house, is either maybe a pedestrian only crossing or something like that.
What we need is a pedestrian traffic light
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Pedestrian.
There's different levels of
Okay.
things
Yeah,
you
that
can
could
do
be
that make a difference on busy roads, that when it's activated by a pedestrian, that it stops traffic and it's not a major inconvenience otherwise. So hawk signals are one that's a more highly visible, and then there's also those flashers you can put on the crosswalk sign. So there's a couple different levels of things that you can do.
Wasn't there? Because I know they put the big white lines in the street. I thought there was a light there at one point.
So these weren't posters we had up, but this is just another example of bringing in another outside plan into your master plan just to try to coordinate. So this is the Blue Ways of St. Clair 2019 strategic plan, and there's 2 parts to this. There's Blue Ways and then there's Trailhead, and they have priority recommendations for trailheads. So they have we have mainland water trails, which we discussed this somewhat with Lipinski project being near a Blue Way. And then also there's 4 island routes that they've identified. This is a way to promote kayak with kayakers and non-motorized watercraft routes that they can take from public launches. And then they have suggested trailhead improvements. And actually, it calls out a project you've been working on at the Township, the future access site on Columbine Road, kayak launch just west of the Schoolhouse Grill. That's in their plan, and that's something that's being developed by the Township. So that's a good example of a plan being coordinated with improvements by the Township. So, and they also call out the DNR parking lot site at the marsh, as there should be some improvements there to make that a nicer trailhead, restrooms and things like that. So things the township can consider as they get to them. So, and that's all I
Isn't the
have.
state supposed to put a kayak thing along Dyke Road there, a launch or something? Never,
Supposed to be a boat launch.
right.
And it's supposed to be converted for,
Was that the state doing that or something?
the DNR state.
I think Harley said that a couple of years ago, they were supposed to.
Should we include like DNR stuff, what other people are doing in this too?
Remember, he talked about it at the last year's motivational meeting.
The supervisor went to
They were gonna
Lansing and
dredge and
addressed
they
all
were
that,
gonna put
and
in
they
a
had
water
everybody on board with that project on,
He also talked about the trail
Dixie,
at that time.
Dyke
Where
Road
the
there.
monument is?
Yeah,
And he said the paperwork was on the
so I don't know when all that's gonna take place, we have to talk to the supervisor.
So yeah, we're trying to kind of collect all those things that the supervisor's working on, that you've been working on, to try to keep it in one document so that people that aren't aware of it have that as a resource.
Did you, I don't know if I should say this or not, but Helen and Point Trumbull, that property there, did you take a look at that? No? Over there by Danny's, yeah. Not Danny's Liquor, but across the street. But if you didn't, it's fine, so,
Across on 29?
yeah. 29, Helen and 29. But anyway, privately owned right now.
So that's all I have. So all this information will be put into the plan that you'll receive in that first section of the document, with more text and more images so that you can read that. And some of it will be from the previous plan, updating it, and some of it will be new information. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions? Look forward to December's packet. How's that? It's time to put-
And
Well, part of it.
it'll
yes.
be
Part
rough
of it.
still, so there won't be final editing. It'll be still a working rough document, so don't worry about like typos as much as more as, are there things we're missing, or is it structurally, should it be rearranged, or just more bigger
Okay.
picture, things like that. Sometimes,
It's a work in progress.
It'll be a draft,
Yeah.
but then you'll have a month to read it.
Okay.
So that's the idea, is to really give you time to read it, set it down, go back to it.
Well, we fall asleep after 15 minutes.
it won't be too lengthy, like it will be.
You got a whole month to figure it out.
I was gonna say, could we get, I know this, you said this was gonna be part of the chapters, but could we get a copy of this emailed to us so we can
Sure.
look at this
Yeah, it's
before?
hard to.
Yeah,
Yeah, we went with the projector that was dealing today, and the quality was not quite as sharp to be able to read everything. So we'll definitely, we're gonna post that online for everyone who was at the open houses. They requested, they wanted to go back and, be able to view those materials online. A lot of them took the questionnaires with them, and are gonna email them their, stuff to Sydney, and she's gonna forward it on to us as part of, an additional way to get some public input, so we never wanna turn that down, so. That's where we're at right now, so you'll have the draft coming up soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the hard work.
I would think like, you're gonna develop San Souci a little bit more, we're gonna need some sort of sewage thing going on over there, right?
That's what we heard,
Yeah.
so that's,
I mean, that's gonna be your limiting factor then.
yeah, so we've got some ideas though.
Yeah, we need some there.
But yeah, that was one of the comments we heard.
Yeah.
figure something out.
Well, hook into, the old club. Hook into the old club system.
That's a long hook.
Put a couple of pumps on it, you can.
But are we looking to expand the commercial district along LaCroix? Is that what-
So later on, we'll get to how the future land use plan lines up with zoning. And we'll go through and find where those conflicts are. So as you can see here in San Souci, the zoning doesn't line up with the future land use plan. So you'll be able to make that decision where those conflicts exist based on the use or,
Because I know the old Cummings Bake Shop,
It's been sold.
Is it?
I know.
so we can, we will look at that.
They rezoned it as residential and it was commercial at one time. The whole district there was commercial.
Yeah, so we will, later on that, when we get to the future land use plan section, we'll look at the designations and if those are appropriate.
Post office.
I think when we did the master plan, 7 years ago, idea back then was that whole to be
Yes.
commercial, from basically San Souci to, I'm gonna call it the new fire hall, Lions Hall, whatever. But it was a thought process, but I'm not, yeah.
So that was kind of suggested in the reps to the other open house, and obviously the septic and limitations and parking are the two things that you kind of have to balance as far as, development there, so we have a few ideas there that we're gonna.
All right, should we move on to item number 9? Is there anything else you guys have? You're all set?
If there's no more questions, no, then that was just an easy day for you.
Okay. We'll
I
look
need
forward
your
to
number, Matt. I want to get a hold of you on something.
Should be on your list.
I may have it somewhere.
Well, if you don't.
But if you just lend me a card.
Okay, we'll move on then. Thank you very much, Matt and Eric. To item number 9, ZBA representatives report, which is Keith.
I have no report. I'm not sure if this is the time to request.
Well, I was gonna say Keith, let's see, it was Keith, Christine, and Robert all are staying with us for a few more years.
Yes,
But Keith does not any longer want to be the board's representative with the ZBA.
I wouldn't say it as I don't want to, it's just,
You're declining to, how's that?
it's, at this point, it's a little difficult for me to
Okay.
do both chores, both tasks, I should say. So I would like to respectfully step down from that position, and hopefully somebody else would fill in and take over.
Any volunteers? And it meets what day of the week, or what time?
It's the third Wednesday of every month at 7 o'clock, only if there is a pending appeal.
So, is anybody interested? I'll rush to say
You were
yes.
talking so loud before, when
Sure,
it
I'll
was
take it.
unofficial,
Thank you, lady.
unofficial.
Sure, I'll take it. I'll be good Wednesday, yeah, as long as there's no meeting.
Since you brought it up, there is a meeting Wednesday. Here's the packet.
Yeah, all right, I'll do
Okay, I guess Harold is going to.
So move to appoint.
Second.
All
All
in
in
favor?
favor? Aye, all opposed.
Did you see the railroad?
it. Yeah, I see the comment.
Congratulations, Harold, here you go. We can't like, look
Comment.
forward to the next,
Just having more of a dinner.
I don't think your mom's really happy with that.
She's very happy. Look at her. She's grinning and smiling.
Oh, I don't like that.
They didn't want it.
Robert also expressed an interest, so.
I'll split it 50/50.
I was
Can we
gonna,
do
I
that?
was gonna mention that.
Can we split it?
No, you can't.
I think so.
Alternate.
Well, they already have an alternate on the ZBA. They have two alternates, I believe. Well, we have one now, right? Or they have, one died, yes.
That's not good.
That's always a good way to be
And
out.
we have an alternate.
I can't, what was his name, the gentleman's name?
Hey, Eric, can we
can't-
have an alternate from planning to ZBA?
Yeah.
Check the bylaws, I'm not,
Conic?
yeah.
Conic? Yeah, Conic. I think I only was at maybe 2
We'll have
meetings
to
with
check
him
in.
before he passed. I remember.
Usually
last
the
one he took,
alternate's
that
for
was really nice.
the board, not for one person to have an alternate.
Say one more
Usually
time.
an alternate is an alternate
Today's
for the
one.
board, not for like an individual.
Oh, you're probably right, forget it. Sorry, Harold, you're it. Harold, she's wanting to.
Don't forget to stop by and get sworn in.
Does he?
Okay,
You have to
All
go
right.
get sworn in and all that stuff.
where?
See
Is
Cindy,
that one at this meeting?
see Cindy to swear you in.
Are they rehashing
So they tell Keith not to come
When you
back?
guys go to planning commission.
the boathouse guy? I was at that one, yes. Okay.
What, the next meeting's when? A week from,
Today.
so you have to do that before.
And they'll give you, they should have a pamphlet, like the ones that we had for planning with the basically guidelines for.
It's all, all right, we got that taken. All right, congratulations. Moving on to item number 10, board representatives report.
Nothing to report concerning planning.
Okay. Item number 11 is chairperson's report. Okay, we already took care of ZBA. Everybody should have received the Clay Township wide motivational training. Please let Cindy know if you're attending or not.
How long is the motivational training?
In your case, probably to midnight.
If I come in at 9?
I don't ask Christine, she'll keep you in line, okay? I also believe we received, was it from you, Mark, the, don't be late to help kids skate, that was passed on to us?
What was that again?
The Don't Be, the skate park? Is that- Make a tax deductible donation by December 31st to the Optimus Park new skate park sponsored by Tony Hawk and Ralph C. Wilson Foundation.
Where?
Did you not receive, no, when is it, an old one?
I didn't know.
Here, pass it down, and we can take a look at it. That's what it said.
Then check the city of Port Huron.
There.
If you go fund me, no, they take 3% or 5%.
Mark said.
And then, what else we had? Monday, we're meeting with Lipinski Island, like we had talked about. We were gonna get the planners, the applicant, and I together for a meeting at 3. So then, our next meeting is December 11th. I think that's all I have. Horseshoe, yes. Okay, item number 12, planning commission member comments.
Oh, I appreciated the training session we went through.
Oh, yeah.
And the only thing, as always, the sound system
No,
sucked.
that stunk.
Yep. That was very good with the lights finish.
But I really like the little, layovers and stuff.
And whoever didn't attend, they gave us a flash drive.
Oh, yes, I have
So
that.
if anybody wants it.
Sure.
Just as a,
Go ahead.
I'll throw it out there, if you think it's something next year, if there's a light agenda, you want us to do a condensed version of that, just so everyone gets the same for you.
Okay.
I think that'd be a good
Condense it
idea.
down to about a half hour, maybe the hands-on aren't as,
Sure.
you know, but.
We had fun with it.
Well, I was just letting you know that I know sometimes we're
That
restricted
begs
to
a
like
question.
an hour-long training.
We didn't get our boat. We needed the boat.
Begs a question again, though.
We didn't get our turnout expenses.
We had some of these nice turning radii.
Yeah, you wanted the binders, right?
Yes.
Yes. No, but, we have one of those nice templates to determine whether cars turning in and out of driveways
Yes,
work.
the turn radius.
I tried to put that on our plan that we have, that you discussed Monday. We need a better plan of that driveway so we can use that template to see whether it works or not. Going in and out. We will determine that.
I did.
Oh, you did? I did. Because I didn't quite see if that driveway was 30 feet or whatever they said. It didn't look like,
The approach has been approved by EPA, is all so I don't know how much room there is, but we won't get into that. But I just wanted to let you know
Very good.
We like to provide that.
Your portion of it, not the water.
I'd like the water.
All that information, we're working separately to,
Okay.
on a resiliency chapter for master plans, particularly waterfront communities. So it'll have some of that information in there, but no, we're not gonna go into that level of detail. It would be more on the site plan.
Consider the community we live in, if anybody's interested in, I'm gonna call it the water level section that we attended. They did put it on a flash drive, so if somebody's interested, let Cindy.
Definitely like.
That was good.
They do a really
I'll take
good
it.
job of
Okay.
How many stations do they have to monitor all that good stuff?
It was all the way up to Michigan coast,
That's
yeah,
a lot.
like Michigan coast. And it was,
100 years worth of history.
yeah.
Considering this area, it was very enlightening information. Yes, that's what I meant. Not in an encouraging way.
Our portion of it.
Okay.
We could
Yep.
figure out something.
Sure,
So just throwing that out there with, if we feel like that's something.
when it slows down. When it gets so that we have a lull and stuff. Okay. Any other planning commission member comments?
Yeah, when I went to the township board meeting, I just wanted to mention, the township, on the same issue as this skate park, as far as donations, the township is collecting toys for Goodfellows, if anybody's interested. And apparently they have something going with our water bills where you can round up, and that money goes to Goodfellows. So, just an FYI.
A penny doesn't mean much, does it?
Be nicer if we rounded down the township. They could go there.
And they could donate it, right?
They make up the difference, is that what you're suggesting? Yeah. Why don't you go to the next meeting and see how that goes?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Any other planning commission member comments?
Harold, thank you. I would have been more jumpy at it, but I have a busy schedule already.
And I would like to also say thank you for filling in for me and thank the rest of the commission for allowing me to be the representative for the last year. It's been a learning experience and I've enjoyed it.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
Don't hesitate to raise your hand again.
Once things settle down, next year,
Maybe
we'll revisit it in a year.
There we go. All right, well, hearing nothing more from planning commission members, I'm gonna move on to item 13, public comments. Public comments, going once. Anybody wanna come forward? Going twice?
Comments on the new appointment?
Where's Mommy at?
Right there.
She's not wanting to say a word. She's just shaking her head. Get a good shake of head.
Oh, you wait till she gets you in that car.
You can leave them.
All right, no public comments on item number 14, adjournment.
So moved. I drove.
All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you, everyone.